welcome to the SeizeYourBusiness.com podcast and video blog. My name is Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Jim Waszak from Success Enhancement.
Hello, everybody.
And today our guest is Jeff Long. He's got two businesses, Midwest Chaplain Services and Empowering Life Decisions. So he's a workplace chaplain and a life coach. And our topic today is going to be work-life balance for business owners and entrepreneurs. So thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
So, Jeff, tell us a little bit, how did you get into such a sort of a unique, unusual niche here? I don't know too many workplace chaplains.
Well, prior to me starting the two businesses, I was for 3 years a full-time hospice chaplain.
Okay.
Working with not only the patients but the family members,
Yeah.
I would be doing support or providing resources as a chaplain, but also helping them in life coaching or maybe even with their work, because what was happening at home was affecting their work and everything.
Yeah.
So that's how I got it started, and I decided that they would both work well as a niche.
So what are the benefits of having a workplace chaplain come in and talk to your employees?
Well, for several things, it would be it reduces turnovers, absenteeism, because they're also getting the support there at the workplace. The morale is better, the teamwork. If you have a sort of a happy or employee, you know, they're going to get some more work done, more productivity, and they're going to also appreciate the management by providing that service to them.
So what does the service consist of? Because I'm picturing you in like a little mini cathedral inside of an office building.
No, I wear Dockers and a polo shirt. We just go in. No employee is forced to have a conversation with us. We don't preach religion or anything, but we're there just to get to know them, to build their support and trust, because a lot of times the workplace chaplain, it replaces or supplements an EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Program. So a lot of times employees won't call an 800 number if they're in a crisis or needing to talk, where with us, it's confidential. We don't talk to the management or the owners about our conversations. But for instance, say one of you or Kevin, you have aging parents and you don't know what to do, or you're needing to find a residential place. You might ask us, well, do you know of anywhere? We can give you some resources you can check out, or you can do your own, or maybe one's having end-of-life issues, maybe hospice. You may need to talk about it, but also need some resources available. We do that.
So you come into the workplace and whoever wants to talk to you, do they book a time to talk to you, or do they just kind of come in and out like when we used to go to confession?
Well, it depends on the employer, how they want us in the company. A lot of times we can walk by their workplaces, stations, and if they have a moment, they'll just say hello, talk a little bit, or on break or lunch. But this takes care of the employees and their families too for 24/7, so they can call us and schedule time to meet with us after hours.
Yeah, so you really develop a relationship with all the employees.
It's a trusting relationship you're building with them.
Okay. So let's talk about work-life balance, and I know that's something that I struggle with. And
before we get on to that, Kevin, excuse me for interrupting, but I did have one question based on what you just said. So, you go in there with this notion, like you just described, people are having problems with a sick loved one or something like that. But what if you go in there and these people start all telling you that, there's this management policy that's really problematic, and don't you get kind of caught in a dilemma where you kind of should tell the management that this is an issue, but then you have the confidentiality with the individual? How would you handle something like that?
Well, that part, we would not break their trust or anything, but we would listen to them, hear what they're saying, maybe ask them if they've done this and this, suggestions, and then also when we're talking to like the owners or HR or something, we can just say, well, what are your issues, and just sort of see maybe if they're the same, and then work like that.
You have to finesse it.
Because I'll give you a totally different thing. It's not with the workplace, but a hospice patient sometimes would talk to me about dying, but they didn't want to talk to the family members to upset them. But the family members would be telling me about the dying, but they didn't want to bring it up to the patient. And I'm like, you two just need to talk.
Yeah.
And so work it out that way.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Kevin. Yeah, let's back to your question on the work-life
Yeah,
That
so
is an issue.
I assume as a life coach, you talk to a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs about how to balance, the time they spend on their business and the mental energy they spend on their business versus being present with their families when they're with their families and having enough time with their families. So, what issues do you see there? How do you counsel people in that department?
Well, initially, and first of all, the individual needs to have a change. Be willing to want to change, because if they're not going to want to do that, then you can do everything, talk all you want, or make a goal, and nothing's going to happen. But initially, they try various things, maybe allocating a little extra more time in the evening or on the weekend for their family, or say during supper hours, the phone is on vibrate or it's in the other room and I won't pick it up during my meal. Because even sometimes that takes away from your family time and your personal time, and you can't have a full conversation, especially with if you have teenagers, because they're constantly in and out of the house, and sometimes you need to have just those 2 or 3 minutes to talk to them and stuff, see how they're doing or what's going on with their lives. Also, to have a plan set, write it down. Like small goals, like a week or 2, and then what you're wanting in a month, 3 months, and what you're looking at for your personal and work balance in a year. And then discuss, like with the life coach, how are you going to get to those goals? What are you going to do to make those goals happen? And like all of us, a lot of times there's always 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But again, it's just keeping the consistency and over that. I would say the biggest struggle most of the individuals that I talk with is because of all the electronics today. It's right there readily. And so they have to do something to get that away from their hand or something before they can step aside to do the personal stuff from the work related. Because if it's right there, they're more or less going to look at it or answer it.
Intrusive, and it demands your attention.
Exactly.
It demands your attention. Can you give us, maybe like a case study? Obviously, no names or anything, but somebody who did make some kind of a change and what it took to actually accomplish the change.
Yes. I had an individual, it wasn't a business owner, but it was a employee, and it was one that went above and beyond. But those are the kinds of business owners likes and everything, because they're 24/7 about work. But because of his family life and his marriage, there was sort of like an ultimatum. We need to have this, or we need to change something else. So that was his motivational to start changing. So what he initially did was he would start not answering the phone during a meal. He also started scheduling at least 1 night a week, whether it was during the week, usually on the weekend. Him and his wife would go out to eat, and the phone would stay on vibrate in the vehicle during that time. And but there was a lot of setbacks because the temptation was always there, or he said, I forgot to go set it aside, so the phone. But also with him, the phone would be also by the bed. So if he woke up in the middle of the night, or if the light came on from his phone, he would be doing that, and that would wake up or bother his wife. And so he learned also how to go through the settings, turn off so the light and different stuff wouldn't go, or turn the phone upside down so it wouldn't, and then the flashing wouldn't go on the phone. That part I don't do with on the phone, the flashing. But it took, like, I would say, good 3 to 4 months for him to get sort of in a normal pattern. But once he did, their relationship helped. Plus, he felt a little bit better because he was not as tired, and he wasn't as stressful because he was doing a little bit of both. It was personal stuff, family stuff, besides the work.
Let me have to ask you a question, because this is kind of a topic that I think about quite a bit. And as a little bit of an introduction, I was giving a talk once upon a time, And I said, today, our modern world, we've got so many ways to communicate. We've got cell phones, we've got voicemail, we've got fax, we've got email, we've got texting. In fact, we've got so many ways to communicate, it's made communication impossible. And what I kind of mean by that, though, is, people are like so caught up in everything is a text or an email or something that I think we are losing something because we don't have that personal communication where you see the body language and the whole thing. Do you see a lot of that in kind of your work coming up with people having those kind of issues, or any other comment you may have on that?
Yes, and also I know I was talking with a family because their kids, especially at family gatherings, would talk to each other on the phone texting instead of having an actual conversation or listening to the family traditions and stories. So while talking with this one family, this couple, they decided, along with the other adult members of the families, what they started doing at the family gatherings is they had a basket, and everyone put their phones on silence and was put in a basket and was put under one of the adults' chairs, and no one was to get that until the adults were done eating. So they had to then talk. And just even 2 family dinners, there was, even the kids enjoyed it because they were paying attention.
Yeah. Exactly.
And also the adults weren't getting upset because the kids might be laughing and they're not included in it because they're reading on the phone whatever they're talking about.
Right.
But it is because people don't know how to
relate.
Have a conversation and relate to each other.
I think that's a big issue, especially with the younger people. Yeah.
The thing that I struggle with as a business owner is I set my own schedule, and the business is right now doing well enough that I'm a non-essential part of it, but I'm in charge of all the business development. So, there's these limitless to-do list of opportunities. I'm opening up satellite offices in Elmhurst and Naperville right now, and there's just so much to do there. But at the same time, I could easily take a long weekend, spend time with the kids at any given time. So in any given week, I have complete control over, am I going to make this a 5-day weekend, or am I going to work through the weekend? And there's a wide range of being somewhere between a workaholic and, being a dad 24/7 that I could pick from. And that leaves me in a situation where when I'm with my family, I always feel like, there's stuff I could be getting done for work right now, and I'm not always mentally present because I'm thinking about that. And then when I'm at work, I'm like, well, the kids aren't in school right now. I could be hanging out with them, and I'm here working. Am I doing the right thing? Am I missing out on?
So it's like the grass is perpetually greener on the other side.
Yeah, and there's no right answer. There's a movie about the making of the movie Mary Poppins. It came out a couple years ago, and I forget the name of the movie, but Colin Farrell plays the main character's dad. And in the first half of the movie, you think he's the best dad ever because he's cutting out of work all the time and coming home and just playing with his kid. And, after a while, he ends up losing his job, and then, I think it just becomes an alcoholic and it becomes terrible. But, when I was watching that first half of the movie, I'm like, man, I need to be more like that guy.
Yeah.
And then in the second half of the movie, you see, well, you got to have some sort of balance there. And, so I always struggle not only with the time that I devote to family versus work, but also with just, mentally shutting down and enjoying family time rather than being stressed out or whipping out the laptop, when the kids are off playing at the bouncy house and I don't feel like they need my direct attention. I'll often pull out my laptop and, work on my website a little bit. But I'm trying to train myself, when I'm home to be home and when I'm at work to be at work, and then figure out the right schedule.
That's the whole notion of being in the moment. And what techniques do you have you recommend for accomplishing that?
Well, I would ask Kevin initially, maybe say not 30 days a month, but look at 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, you've got 20 weekdays, Monday through Friday, and you've got 4 weekends, Sundays. Out of that, during the week of an evening, how much is family time and how much in those 20 evenings is work? And in those 4 weekends right now are work or family. and then just sort of see where you're at right there. Is it half and half? Is it majority of the work and less on the family, or more of the family? And then decide how you want to go from there. Because it sounds like, you mentioned that you can switch things around. So I would be, if we were in a session, I would just be asking you to relate, what are the numbers like? And I won't put you on the spot right now, but that's what I would do to initially start, and then from there you would do small steps, because if you make a giant goal, it's going to be much harder to keep. But do the little steps, like, well, in the next 4 weeks, this is my time and how much percentage I want work, and then this is what the fee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think along that line, I remember when I was a kid, we always had things we did that they weren't like big deals, but now in retrospect, I remember them, so well. Like back then, when I was a kid, cars was a huge thing. On a Saturday, you go in the city and in the alley, everybody's washing their car, tuning their car, changing. Now cars are just like refrigerators, it's just like an appliance. But, I remember things like my dad had his own business, and he kind of worked right by our house. But we'd go out in the evening, we'd take a ride, and we'd get a hamburger, or we'd get an ice cream or something. And those were just great times. So I think maybe if you do spend time with them, rather than do something where they're doing it and you're still alone, do something that you're all kind of involved with together. And my dad,
quality time.
Yeah, my dad was great about just coming up with stuff that, we're going to go see this, we're going to go see, So, I don't know, for whatever that's worth, just some of my experience.
Well, and another thing an individual has to also consider is if they're on call all the time. Like for being a chaplain, the various chaplains were on call certain times.
Right.
So then you also have to factor that in, because you may not be able to have that certain time, and so you need to consider that basically work time and not personal time.
The success I've had in work-life balance, and I've got a long way to go, but what I am able to do successfully is, say I'll get up, because a lot of what I do involves networking, and there's a networking event every night, and there's always something that I could be going to, and cocktail hours and stuff. But I set a rule for myself. I'll get up as early in the morning as I need to get up to go to coffees in the morning. But after, I'm home by 5:30 every day, and that's kid time. And if I need to go back to work at 8:30 when they go to sleep, sometimes I'll do that, and sometimes I'll pull all-nighters working. Mm-hmm. But I 5:30 to 8:30 is every night that's kid time, and every once in a while I'll make a sacrifice for that, but it's rare. And then the weekends, I don't work on weekends, so I've set rules for myself. And you hear me complaining about work-life balance, but I'm not working any more than anyone else. But I always have the opportunity to take off Monday and Friday. Mm-hmm. And when I do, though, I never enjoy it, because I always feel like, okay, am I letting my business slide?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, you know what? I'll share another experience that kind of relates to that. Is vacation, and I learned eventually that taking a week or 2 week vacation, not the best thing, because you get so relaxed and you get so stressed out. I found I enjoy more like a 3 or 4 day long weekend. So one thing you could maybe think about doing is, since you do have this flexibility, just figure maybe one day during the week, I'm going to take off from 1 to 3, and I'm going to take the kids to the pool. I'm going to go to Santa's Village, or I'm going to go take them for a walk where, and maybe that break will even help you be more effective in the business side. But I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
The thing that's... go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The thing that spoke to me with what you're saying is kind of figure out where you're at, and kind of figure out how many hours you're spending now, and maybe not take leaps, like taking Monday and Friday off all the time, but maybe say, okay, once a month, I'm going to take a Friday off and spend time with the kids, and just structure it in slowly, so it's not, it's not like you feel like you're being negligent in one area or the other, finding that balance.
Right. And I was hearing you say, too, that, then off and then you're worried or thinking about work or something, I always have to remind myself too and others, the only person, because a lot of people will say, well, I feel guilty. And I say, well, the only person that can make you feel guilty is yourself, really.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to remind ourselves too. We have to give ourselves permission to have that work-life balance in our lives.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other pearls of wisdom you want to share with us before, other than your phone number and how to reach you? Because that's another thing we need.
Well, if anyone's wanting a switching careers or wanting to work on their work, personal life balance, contact me. You can contact me through MidwestChaplainServices.com or EmpoweringLifeDecisions.com, or my phone number is 630-418-1413 or JeffLong268@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to reach me, we do free consultations. You can call my office at 630-324-6666. I do most of our business work personally. You can also check out my podcast about the law at learn-about-law.com. And Jim, how can people reach you?
Best is call 630-272-3895. Any business or personal performance issues, or if you want to incorporate some improv comedy into your work, give me a call.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.